I think everyone's looking to me, but you're all, it's muted there, so we can't hear anything.
Yeah, Preston Neal one.
Sorry. Now can you
There we
hear?
go.
Do you want me to say that
It's a
again?
habit, sorry.
Nope, as if you introed it, I think I'm good, and I will go ahead and I don't know, I'm gonna go into normal mode. So if you said something different, then let's see here, which screen am I sharing?
Looks like we got two. We got your presentation in the background, and then in the front is the PowerPoint, the whole kit and caboodle.
Deb, maybe you can mute your computer so that the echo goes away maybe.
Okay, hold on, let me stop share. Okay. Switch these.
He should hear us through this.
Can you hear us?
Me, yes.
Great.
All right, let's try this again.
Can you hear us now?
Yep, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Deb was just adjusting a setting, so I was checking.
All right, sorry. There we go. Let's go with this. Share here from beginning. There we go.
That looks right.
Okay. So good evening, everyone. Happy Halloween. We will try to get through this relatively quickly. And so I'm assuming that, as mentioned, what the hearing that we have this evening is for a master plan amendment. And we'll go through that a little bit of the process and whatnot, but it will include also updates of the future land use map and the 3 mile plan. So this is a typical hearing process that will follow. Oh, I guess, let's see here. There we go. Typical hearing process that will follow. We'll start with the staff report. The applicant, Chris Hawkins, is here, and I think I heard that the owner might be in person. So there'll probably be a presentation and some opportunity for discussion, and then there's also a public hearing on this. So just real quick, kind of some background that you know, this isn't something that we see too often. An update to the master plan, and the master plan itself, the graphic that you see on the right, comes from the master plan, that it anticipates amendments and updates, but it doesn't really spell out a process through which to go through. And so back in January, we myself, Preston, town staff, started putting together a process through which such a request could be evaluated, reviewed, and considered, and then updated by the Planning Commission. When we created that, we really put a strong emphasis on what the code, the comp plan says, is that there was a robust public engagement process done in developing the master plan, and any amendment to it should also include such a robust process. So we'll go through that, but that's what we had in mind when we were drafting it. And so the process is laid out right there. I'd go into a little bit more detail in the staff report, but essentially it's a submittal and a completeness review to make sure that everything is in there that we need to be able to do a review, which is normal for applications. And then there's a public meeting. There's a notification period. We send it out for referral, make sure that items are there. And then there's a public meeting, and that's held by the applicant. You saw some notes from that in the submission. And then we provide an open comment period for 21 days. It's noticed in the newspaper, posted at town hall and on the website. And then following all of that, we have a resubmittal by the applicant, which is the version that you're seeing in there that outlines all of those steps and processes. And now we're at that Planning Commission hearing component. Since statutorily it is the Planning Commission's authority to review and update and adopt a master plan for the town. That's where that authority is. And then what we'll do, assuming that the Planning Commission approves this, we would move that decision over to the town council next week to ratify. And that's just a formal acknowledgement that they agree with it, but the authority in this process lays with the Planning Commission. So any questions on that before we dive in? Just want to make sure everybody understands all that.
I've got a question. So we're discussing changing the master plan, not the annexation, right?
That is correct. That is correct. And I get into a little bit more of that later on. I'll talk about kind of other steps and things that are coming down the pipe as well.
But tonight, we're not talking about the annexation approval at all. We're just talking about amending the master plan to allow for a future annexation, correct?
That is correct. Yep.
Good. Glad I understand it.
Yep. Okay, so I'm sure that most of you all know where this is. This is it's the Preserve PUD, which is on the south end of town, over by the athletic fields. The area in green there shows that area generally. Dalwhinnie Group is the owner, and Chris Hawkins with Alpine Planning Group is the applicant. The legal description is a portion of Lot A, Abbott exemption. And then the zone, as is right now in the county, the property is zoned Valley Zone in their zoning classifications. I go into a lot more detail in the staff report, and I won't go through it all now, but there is a bunch of history with this project. It started many years ago, went through a couple of updates, pauses, a transfer in ownership, and then it kind of revitalized again, probably the middle end of last year. And a lot of what came out of that was this concept that the public improvements, some of the public improvements, specifically the sanitation or the sewer lift station, is to be located outside of town limits, south of the project. And so staff started talking about how to make that happen with the county staff and county commissioners, pulled the applicant team and the development team in, and really what ended up happening at the end of that is said, you know what, it makes the most sense to annex this area, any infrastructure that's going to be the town's, annex it within the town limits, so that you can maintain it properly under your jurisdiction. So that was the concept, and then we said, okay, now we have to do that. And so the first step in all of that is to, you can't annex any property that is inconsistent with the comprehensive plan or the master plan, and specifically the 3 Mile Plan and the future land use map. So that's what we're doing this evening. We're looking at specifically, as you mentioned, Jack, the future land use map, the urban growth boundary, the initial growth boundary, and the 3 Mile Plan. And for each of those, I go into greater detail in the staff report. I won't be going through a whole lot here. But it is approximately 200 feet south of what's there right now, and what's annexed to the town right now. And if you were on site, it basically includes the road that comes back to County Road 23. Sorry. Here's just the process overview. We did get the submittal. It took a couple of times because, again, it was kind of a new process. It was deemed complete in May. It went out for referral for I think it was 21 days there, so it's May to the beginning of June. Sent it to 6 referral agencies, did not receive any, and that basically is the county jurisdictions, or the county staff, county board of commissioners, utility providers, things of that nature, special districts that jurisdiction would matter. Then we held the public meeting, or I should say Chris and the applicant held a public meeting over at the community center on August 10th. And then we had the open comment period for 21 days. And that 21 days, just again, to give a little bit of background, we didn't just kind of pull that out. The statutory rule of thumb, if you will, is that notifications for 21 days. And so that's what we went with. We tried to, where we could, pull from the statutes as opposed to town standards. So that's where the 21 days comes from. And then we're here this evening with the planning commission hearing, and then tentatively next week at town council for ratification. So that's generally it. Gosh, we have not received any comments. I actually think that's an outdated slide, so I'm just going to go right past it, but we have not received any comments. There was, I believe, one individual at the, I think it was you, Pam, at the public meeting. Yeah, we haven't heard any negative feedback or input from the referral agencies. This amendment criteria is, I pulled straight from the master plan currently. And so these are kind of, while you're making this recommendation, or sorry, making this decision and considering this action, these are the criteria that you should consider. So with all of that, I guess that is all that I have. Nice, short and sweet, to the point. So again, I go in a lot more detail in the staff report. We can go through that if you'd like, but at the end of the day, we feel that based on the input and comments received from the referral agencies, special districts, and the general public through the public process that we have, we would recommend, staff would recommend that the planning commission approve the amendment to the master plan, the future land use map, and the 3 mile plan. I guess one thing I'll just point out or mention specifically that the 3 mile plan in particular, statutorily you update that you should be updating that every year annually, and it has to be updated within the last year in order to approve an annexation. So by doing this, we reset that clock, and hopefully have if when an annexation comes in, or if an annexation comes in, we now have that date reset to today, or whenever this is approved. So that's kind of, it's a little bit of a formality, but having it in motion and specific there is for those reasons. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you all might have, and if not, I can turn it over to the applicant.
TJ, that last thing you mentioned about having to be updated within the last year or two in order to do an next, is that in state statute? Yes. I kind of chuckle. It's really funny. We've been having this conversation internally quite a bit. I've worked with a number of communities, and they all kind of do it a little bit differently, but just to make sure that it's consistent, yes, it does say that your 3 mile plan, or your 3 mile your 3 mile plan needs to be updated annually prior to approving an annexation. So that's lucky.
yeah. So I will say that we're changing our approach and recommending that all our clients just do kind of just like you adopt fee schedules and kind of appointments every January. You have on your docket to update your 3 mile plan every January.
Good to know. Thanks.
Yep.
Who does that here? The town council?
Probably, yep. Council could refer it to planning commission if we thought it was necessary, but as long as it's kind of a rubber stamp thing, I don't think we need to go to planning commission. Only if there were changes, I would think.
Any questions from the commissioners at this time?
I think I have a question. I've kind of read this, and I'm a little unclear on, are we changing the master plan specific to this piece of property? So I have some issues about the annexation part of this. So if we're just talking about changing the master plan, there's no need to talk about the annexation. For instance, I don't understand why we're not annexing the river.
Yes, that is correct. So all we're doing at this moment, and also realize that it's a request that comes from a property owner, not necessarily the town, that we're responding to that request. And to just be clear that this is not approving or even setting any precedent or decision that says, okay, now we've amended the master plan, so we have to annex it, right? Annexation is strictly a discretionary item by the town council. But all we're looking at right now is amending, and if you will, yeah, we kind of zoom in on this area, but if you look at the big picture, we are amending that future land use map. And it's just changing that 200-foot kind of dip down on the south side. And it's applying future land use classification of residential. And then also amending the urban growth boundary, the initial growth boundary, and the 3-mile plan to reflect that as well. Any annexation, any other application, including subdivision or construction, site plans, building permits, those will all come subsequent through the normal review processes in the land use regulations.
So if you're not clear, as it says in the staff report, but isn't totally spelled out word for word, when the preserve people came back in to renew their preliminary plat, they needed to move their lift station.
Yeah, I got all that.
Out into the county, and we talked about whether or not we could just let the county regs apply. And then we decided that was silly to have town utilities under county regulations. And so we thought, well, let's just annex a small piece to where the lift station is going to go. But we can't do that without amending these plan documents about our urban growth boundary and our 3-mile plan. So that's why we're doing this. And the question of annexation will come up later. And your questions about why we're not annexing differently will be appropriate then. They're not really relevant.
No, I think my question is appropriate now. I mean, why are we, like, for instance, right across the street from this, like contiguous, this piece is a little triangle that's in the county that touches.
That's already been fixed.
That's already been fixed.
Yeah.
The map doesn't, and the map's inaccurate.
TJ, didn't we fix that?
I do not know. I'm not aware of that.
I believe we did.
Chris, no.
Yeah, I can address that during my presentation.
Okay, I'm fine. I just think that we should amend the master plan, enable to annex more property.
Either I'm mistaken, the map in figure 1 is current, we aimed to fix that in this process, or it was fixed previously, and I don't remember what the deal was on that.
Well, I trust you're good for that too. I just saw, it's just obvious, isn't it?
Yeah.
Any other questions before we hear from the applicant?
Nope.
All right.
Hi, good evening. Chris Hawkins with Alpine Planning. TJ, Preston, thank you for all your help. Really appreciate it. This all started with us trying to meet 3 conditions of the preliminary plat approval. Conditions 10, 11, and 12, I believe, and they're outlined in the narrative. And it also, was pushed along a little bit more because of the relocation of the lift station that's already been described. But this area that's being annexed has already been approved for an access road, a water line, part of a sewer line, a pedestrian trail. So it is a natural progression. We understand the Board of County Commissioners' desire to have this annexed in the town, and it makes sense. And we will come back in with that application, in the near future, hopefully. As far as the area that we're, showing in this map for change, we're not showing anything further to the east because that's would be a big reach. There's no intent to do any urban levels of development on the east side of the river. That small triangle sliver that's part of the athletic park, we have indicated that we'll bring that in through an annexation application to the town. And so that is, incorporated in the town's jurisdiction and part of the town. And so, we'll need to coordinate that with Preston and get the required consents and all that before we get the survey work going. But that was the intent, to clean that up. And that's why the urban growth boundary is shown changing from that jog of the triangle that goes in a northerly direction back down to the south to basically square that up and then take the urban growth boundary down, 200 feet. So we're trying to clean that up a little bit with this master plan amendment and then any future annexation application. TJ did a really thorough job of this. Not sure we need to provide much more detail to you tonight, but we're here to answer any questions. And I believe Michael Cox, who's manager of Dalwhinnie, is there to answer questions as well.
Chris, I've got a question for you. So you guys own this triangle?
No, that's owned by the town of Ridgway, and that's part of the athletic park property.
So the town of Ridgway owns it, but it's not in the town?
No, it had not been annexed, and we identified that. It's, yeah.
Yeah, I'm guessing that that's a oversight at the time that the 18-acre athletic park was gifted to the town, and it probably was not part of that. It probably wasn't part of what the Robert Savage, Jack Young team owned, and so it just was overlooked.
My fear was it was part of the McCullough estate, and that would have been hard to get.
Yeah, it's not part of the McCullough estate. It's definitely part of the town. I did that research.
That's great. Cool.
I had a question about condition number 12. Has that been approved? Is that something that's going through?
Well, it's really not going to be, it's going to be a moot point if we annex it into the town. Because then it falls fully within the town's review and approval of the pavement design and engineered design. So that would be happening. A step TJ didn't talk about yet. There's a couple beyond annexation. We also have to bring in a plat amendment to bring in this piece of land. And then as well, that's kind of a major step to get that done too. With some redesigned infrastructure. So that's kind of out there in the future beyond this, but that will be done with a full, engineering review of the roads to make sure they meet town standards.
Thanks, Chris.
Cool.
Yes.
I'd say my main concern is the longstanding lack of movement on this development, I'll put it that way. I'm hesitant to move forward with this if there's a chance that this development may never proceed. So I guess that's a question for you, Michael, maybe.
Yeah, sure.
What are you guys' plans? How close are you to actually starting this thing back up again?
Well, we've been working on it since we got our first renewal right after, right when we bought it. But our plan is to develop this property. You may have noticed that Acme greenhouse that was across the river from it is no longer there. We just took out about 50 40-yard dumpsters of debris, 10 30-yard dumpsters of recycled steel, and 100 tons of concrete to clean that property up, so that as we continue through this process, this is some place where people want to live and not look at some pile of junk across the river. So, we're moving forward. This is not a fast process.
Understood.
So,
Understood.
but that is the goal.
I just wanted to reiterate, the reason to do this is so that the development can continue.
That's right.
I hope that's the plan.
Yeah.
That's the plan.
Yeah. And if I could just add, the plat extension request that was granted right when COVID was happening last time, we're going to need to come in and ask for another plat extension just because of this time it's taken to get through the process and all these steps. But I think you're going to see progress as we move along in this with the plat and other changes in the design. I just also add that Michael wanted to get the engineering review of our current plans per the current codes to understand what changes need to be made to the plan set so we can get that out to bid and, one, get the plans revised to meet town standards, and then two, get it out to bid so we can actively get a contractor on board with the goal of, hopefully we can get through all the entitlements this winter and hopefully get something happening out there next summer.
That'd be great.
Cool.
Any other questions from the planning commission? I need to open this hearing up to public comment, so I will do so now. Do we have any public comment?
Michael Cox, 6154 County Road 23. I think this is a great idea.
Thank you. Noted.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comment? I will then close public comment. I will go back to the commission one more time to see if we have any questions or if we're ready for a motion.
I think we're ready, unless anybody feels differently. I will move to approve the amendment to the master plan, future land use map, and 3 mile plan to include the area requested by the Downwinning Group LLC, per the details in the staff report dated October 27, 2023 from CPS.
I second that.
Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Sure. Commissioner Forster,
Yes.
Lisk,
Aye.
Nelson.
I,
Sorry. Petroselli,
Aye.
Mayor Clark,
Aye.
and Commission Chairperson Montague.
Aye.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your help.
You're welcome.
You're
Good
welcome.
luck going forward.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Yeah.
We'll see you soon.
Let's see, next I need a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of September 26th.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Lisk with a second from Ms. Boyster. And
You could.
all those in favor?
I,
Aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously with all those present. Let's see, other business. We have here a letter from Mayor Clark regarding an appointment to the Planning Commission.
Yeah, this is just a formality. I have to say, for years, the planning commission operated a little bit informally in terms of terms. And so I'm excited that first under Jen and now under Preston, we're actually being much more responsible about paying attention to how long planning commission terms are and having members come back up for renewal of their term if they want. So this letter is just formalizing the reappointment of my friend Michelle Montague to the planning commission for a new term.
Which ends in 29. I can only hope that I'm still here on the planet in 6 years.
You can only hope all of us are still here in 2020.
Thank you.
Yeah. What planet?
Yeah, right.
What planet?
And now we're all supposed to consider an appointment of a chairperson and a vice chairperson, which will take place at the next meeting. Currently, I am the chairperson and Bill Lisk is the vice chair.
I'm curious to know whether you guys would consider renewing your term, your positions
As chair,
as chair,
I would indeed.
and you?
Well, I would as well. However, I do
Travel.
seem to be the eldest person on this commission. And I certainly am willing to continue in the role. But if the commission would rather have a vice chairman who's not likely to drop dead in the next 2 years, I fully understand.
Bill,
If the-
you're
if the
liable
planet's
to
still
outlive
here.
us all.
If the
Yeah.
planet's still here.
that is no excuse, buddy.
I'd like to strike that reference from the minutes.
Yeah. You're in
A
better.
little bit of a morbid conversation going on right now.
Well, you know, it's
It's
Halloween.
Halloween. yeah.
Why not?
But no, I'm happy to.
I thought you were gonna talk about your travel plans.
He's yet had to
No,
have to chair a meeting.
No,
I don't go anywhere.
yeah, there you go.
Okay, well,
You could be stuck with it.
and that's not to say that anyone else here who'd like to be considered for chair or vice chair can't bring it up at the next meeting.
Yeah.
Or bring it up tonight if you want us to think about it. But I just thought, I'd put the question to you, see whether you're interested in staying on.
Yeah, I like it. I like being in charge.
I think we have a real good commission and real good energy. I'm happy.
It's working.
Yes,
It
It
seems
is.
like we do pretty good.
Yep, I think you're doing a great job. Michelle.
Thanks.
I like the way you manage the business of the commission.
Thank you.
Well, that has to be done. In the past, that hasn't been done real well. And it's a pleasure to see it done correctly, in my opinion.
I think that's important. If you're gonna chair a meeting, you actually have to run it. You can't just sit there.
Yeah, if you're gonna chair it, you gotta chair it.
Yeah.
Can't fake it.
Good.
Great. We seem to all be in agreement on that.
All right.
Do we have any updates from planning commission members?
I have an update that would require that I share my screen. Is that possible? Just have to be on Zoom. Give me a second. To give you a little background, let's see, there's the Zoom. Let me in when you see, there you go. Awesome. No audio. Got it. Share content, share screen. All right, so three of us went to a workshop last week, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday in Grand Junction called Growing Water Smart, hosted by the Sonoran Institute and a sub entity called Babbitt Center for Land and Water Policy. We started at 1 on Monday, went all day Tuesday, and went till 3:30. Went to about 3 on Wednesday, but it was really intensive. It was really good. There were I probably won't remember all the communities that were there. There was we were by far the smallest. Cortez was the next smallest. Fruita, Glenwood, Grand Junction, Summit County, Steamboat, that's what I was trying to think of. And TJ, myself, Preston, Tanya, Ishikawa was our team. Is that right, TJ? Is that everybody?
Who's Tanya?
I bought tickets.
Tanya Ishikawa is the director of the Uncompahgre Watershed Partnership.
I bought a ticket, but I never.
Did you mention Joanne?
Oh, and Joanne, of course, town engineer. Yeah. This wasn't something you could have bought a ticket to, so I'm not sure what you're thinking of. This was an invite only.
Okay, maybe that's a
There's an
different one
annual
also.
water meeting in Grand Junction.
Yeah, this was
And that
different.
either last Friday or the Friday.
It was very close to it.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, that was different.
Yeah.
That was one.
Yeah, this was an invite only thing where community, it was specifically for local governments. You had to apply and you had to do some homework ahead of time. We had to submit a really detailed evaluation of our ordinances and our master plan in terms of water use. So it was really powerful. It's sort of the end of the 3 days, my head was kind of exploding, especially since for 2 days, the week before, I'd gone to the Mountain Towns 2030 Summit in Vail with JT and Terry from council to talk about climate issues. So lots going on in 2 weeks, but I wanted to give you a short synopsis of what I did. And TJ, feel free to interrupt and add anything if you want. I've got a short PowerPoint that Preston put together. So this explains kind of what I was just telling you. And slide, there we go. So the main thing that they had us do was first sit down and set a team intention, talk about how water smart are we now, talk about how water smart do we want to be, and talk about what is our water smart message, and then develop an action plan. They had a model of a storytelling approach for trying to put together a messaging effort for our community around what we wanted to accomplish, what we wanted to do. And it's a statement and another statement, but a statement and therefore the conclusion. So here's our water smart message. Ridgway is a vibrant small town that values our healthy natural environment, and that makes our community desirable. But we must recognize the realities of the dwindling water supply as a result of a hotter and drier climate. Therefore, the town will reduce its water use on town property by improving irrigation efficiency and increasing drought-tolerant landscaping, and we hope you'll join us. If we work together, we can protect what we love about Ridgway into the next century.
That's
Um,
really,
Did you write that?
The team did, we put it together, it was a really cool
Yeah.
process.
Good, I like it.
Every community met in a different little room with a facility, with two facilitators initially. And they were trained, some of them were Sonoran, all the primary facilitators were Sonoran Institute employees, I believe, or have been working with the Sonoran Institute for a while. And then the co-facilitator was somebody else from, like, our co-facilitator was somebody from Colorado Water Conservation Board. And so she actually had knowledge about what the state's doing to help communities do water conservation. But this was a process that took probably half a day to draft this. And it was really cool. I need to back up for a second and say that the first thing that came out of our evaluation of how water smart we are and what we can do is that, in fact, we have a relatively low gallons per person per day water usage. It's like 66. And we'd like to drop that another 10 GPPD. And the best opportunity to do that is our own raw water use in town parks. And
I think I have idea of another way to do it.
yeah,
I think if we could get our meters to tell people how much they're using, I know
That's
I
something
would
discussed.
certainly curb my usage in the summertime. I've gone over a couple times and I was surprised because I didn't know it was for outside watering, but I didn't realize that I
That's
had
a-
used that much. Like,
It's a forensic
I've
meter.
used my drip lines,
Yeah,
I've
right.
left them on overnight because I forgot, but I don't know how much they use.
right.
And so I think, and Ray, I think it was, is it Raymond? Told me that those meters he thought they had the capacity to do that, but we just don't have the technology yet, or something along those lines. But they should be able to do that, the ones that they've replaced.
I don't know if that's true or not. The main advantage of the ones that everybody has now, I think we finished upgrading all the meters around town, is that they can be read from a truck in front of the property. It can't be read remotely from town hall. That would take a whole nother, and I don't know, maybe these meters could do that if we bought extra equipment.
Yeah,
and
but
we
I
can
think that
find
would be
out.
really, really useful, and I'm
I
sure
agree. People-
that the summer is the really high point when people are using water.
Yep, people have talked about that a lot, and we've been limited to just telling people that you can install that yourself where the water comes into your house. You can buy a meter that you install right in line with where the water comes into your house, and you can monitor it yourself that way.
You just need to
But
know to reset it unless you got something really fancy, like the first of the month. I'm guessing that's when it
something like
resets.
that. I have not looked into what those units.
But therefore
do.
educating
Yeah.
people, like this is when it resets and this is what you can do. And the town's working towards you being able to know your usage by this certain year or date or something,
I just
if you don't
done
do it on your own.
I just did a bunch of research into this. I bought 25 water meters for a property that I own, and the water meters themselves are like $300. The computer program's like 30,000 to be able to read it remotely and do what you're asking.
Yeah, I think
So,
that was what he was implying, was
I'm
like we
wondering if
weren't
they
there
have
yet in
office-
that sense.
I'm wondering if they have an off-the-shelf thing that John's talking about that maybe is cheap. The meters, the hardware.
Maybe
is
John
easy.
could
It's the
pirate it
software
with his
that kills
computer
it.
skills.
And then you're setting it up to read it. So
I think that your point is right. I think that only communities that can afford to do this now are bigger communities.
Yeah.
that it's a-
I don't even think they can afford
Scale.
it. I mean, if you have
Well, there are
10,000
communities-
meters, then you can afford $30,000.
There are communities,
Yeah.
but it's larger communities.
Yeah.
And just so you know, the third paragraph there, so we talked about improving irrigation efficiency. To me, as somebody who walks around town at night a lot and in the summer sees those giant rainbirds in the park spraying water all over the place and into trees. And, we're one of our first things we're gonna look at is putting in a much more efficient irrigation system in Hartwell Park. And then the other thing, that talking about increasing drought tolerant landscaping, is what they call on the margins, like everywhere from Hartwell Park to the athletic park. On the fringes where there's grass now, the grass could be removed and what they're calling now Colorado smart landscaping instead of xeriscaping. There's nobody xeriscaping, they think it means zero scaping. So Colorado smart landscaping means just drought tolerant plants, no grass, native plants that once they're established need minimum watering, and doing that just in the fringes
I
areas.
think that looks great too. It kind of frames the field.
It does. It
I
makes
think it looks cool as heck.
So
'cause
one
it's
thing we
like
talked about is
picture
a first step would be to do that along Highway 62 for like the first 10 or 20 feet of Hartwell Park. under the trees there and make little pathways through every
I think that
50
was
feet or
cool.
so.
Well, and
And it'd
the
be-
grass gets pretty beaten up over there too,
Yeah.
because
so
it gets a lot of sun and a lot of traffic.
It'd be a great demonstration project to show.
But the park is on gray water, isn't it?
Yes, but it's still water.
Still water
Yeah,
usage.
it's,
Not great, I think it's just not true.
So if it's on
Correct.
gray
Yeah.
It's
water.
not,
Oh,
not
okay,
great.
sorry,
if it's
wrong
on
term.
gray water,
Yeah.
does it
Wrong
really
term.
say
Okay.
water?
Untreated is what I
it's-
meant.
we call it non-potable. It's
Yeah.
coming from the town's water system, but it doesn't go through the treatment
It's not
But
gray.
plant. It
it's after the
bypasses
fact.
the treatment.
does that count
Oh, yeah.
as, it does count as water usage?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And it is metered.
It's
And
water that
and
could
it's
be potable.
significant.
Okay.
It's
all right.
metered, that's a hard question to answer. It's not metered in the classical sense, but it's metered in the sense that it's coming out of the volume in the storage tanks up at the water treatment plant. Or it's not-
But can
it's
you
not coming
track
out of
the
storage.
amount?
I'm not sure. TJ, do you know how it's tracked? Really, it's a question. for
I wish we had Preston's lovely drawing right now, though, right? Like, isn't this comes out of the ditch way up there, and then it splits and it's up in that system before it gets to the treatment plant.
Does everybody know where the water treatment
Yeah,
plant
yeah.
is? It splits there.
But that's not
So-
something we're gonna try to pursue for home usage, because in general, we're trying to reduce water usage, treated or untreated. So that wouldn't necessarily be the route we'd go.
Well, correct. One of my goals when we put in the raw water system, the non-potable water treatment water system, was to potentially eventually have it run down the alleys and have independent citizens be able to connect to it and use it for their outdoor irrigation. It became, real quickly, it became obvious that would be way too expensive and it wouldn't be worth it. And the only benefit of it would be that people weren't using treated water for their irrigation. And while that would be a benefit, it's not anywhere near overcome by the cost of trying to do it.
One, it's not accomplishing the general goal of using less water.
Correct.
That in a way
Well-
would probably encourage more water
Yeah,
usage.
exactly, I think it'd be better to
Right.
not reduce the
Yeah,
demand instead of increase
Yeah.
the supply.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Mhm.
so, you know, and
Could do
one
both, but-
of the things that I hammered on throughout the conference was just the challenge presented by the need to conserve water at the same time that we don't want our town to become more of a desert. So when people stop watering their plants and a lot of the cottonwoods die, and so it's a real challenge that we have
Oh,
to.
trust me, we deal with it at River Park every day, and
Yeah.
we're losing trees left and right.
So this is the action plan we came up with. For the goal of reduced landscape water usage on municipal turf, we would do widespread municipal turf replacement. For the goal of reducing landscape water usage through municipal irrigation efficiencies, we would upgrade a lot of the places where the giant rainbirds are used. Under the goal of more reliable water supply, we did a lot of talking about the things like piping the ditch from the head gate down to Lake Tonawanda. There's about 5 miles of open ditch there. That obviously there's a lot of water loss through just seepage and evaporation.
5 miles.
5 miles.
I think that's
There's a lot of
fabulous
pipes, a lot of
idea.
money, but there's more money out there for that kind of stuff right now.
I think
And
that's
there
easy
was,
money.
there was even that situation a couple of years ago.
We've got diverted.
People were getting, we're just, siphoning off.
It's hard to steal what's in a pipe.
Yeah,
We don't know.
Exactly.
You said it happened a couple of years ago. We don't know how often it's happened because the ditch does run through quite a bit of private property.
Yeah.
So it can be
Well,
happening
and-
all the time.
yeah, and just for your guys' info, I think I have access to the last 5 or 6 years of flow from that ditch every week or so, because I go up there and check it, because I do some work on the AMRD and
Okay.
in return for recreational use of the
Of that
ranch
beautiful
there.
property.
And so, especially during the summer months, either I or Pat Willits check on a fairly, not daily, but probably weekly. And that's, I think, how it came to the attention of the town, is that we were looking at, historically, we'd be getting, where we would be getting, 2 or 3 CFS, we were getting like less than 1. It's like, wow, what's going on here? Yeah, I think to pipe that would be a really good thing, just.
Should be easy money to find too.
Yeah.
Well, and of
Well, I
course,
think the Institute offers funding, or you can apply for funding.
the Sonoran Institute does, yeah, there's much bigger buckets in the bipartisan infrastructure bill and the Inflation Reduction Act. The feds have tons of money for this kind of thing. So, and like I said, there were a lot of people at the conference that worked for the state or the feds, either through Water Conservation Board or EPA, so we had some great resources, and now it's just a matter of finding time to go back and do the work. But of course, none of this comes without pros and
Money.
cons. Well, I mean, like piping the ditch has all sorts of potential benefits. We could even potentially do a hydro project on it by piping it, but it also takes it away from the wildlife. And so a lot of people talked about how, there's 5 miles of ditch that the wildlife can't access anymore for water. Now, I'm sure they got it elsewhere in the past, but.
They have a big old pond they can get it from.
Yeah, so
I think the
it's
people need
interesting. It's
water.
probably worth some more study, but it's definitely something we're pursuing. So the next goal, supportive and informed Ridgway community, and that's where we're gonna try and put together a media plan based on this guy.
Yeah, I think we could really gain some ground there, people are probably would be pretty proactive, and just the idea like, we can't check our meters yet, but you can put a meter in your house and this is the approximate cost, and, just informing people.
I think the town should probably find a meter that they recommended, you know what I mean? We should probably endorse one that we liked, but I'm thought about this a lot, and I'm very much in favor, and I'm proud of you, John, for bringing up piping that ditch, but I think we shouldn't stop the piping ditch. I think we should take it all the way to lining the pond and think.
Well, that's another thing.
While the money's out there, let's just go grab $5 or $10 million
No,
to do
that
it.
was Joanne's pie in the sky.
Let's do it all.
Idea would be to
Do it correct.
to line Lake
To
Atomo.
line the
Yeah,
lake.
let's
Yeah,
do the
and it
pipe
would-
and the lake.
It would, I think she said it would really primarily require lining the old part, not the new part. I can't remember what the logic was. Something about they tested
Maybe the
it.
material they used on the new part is less absorbent or something, right?
Yeah, I don't really know.
The new, usually now in the Bill parks, like they can line them with bentonite.
I think
Just
there probably was some better.
And Joanne would know
Yeah.
that. So if it was newer in age,
Well,
they
the
probably
other,
built it to a different.
the other thing we really liked about this is that what we're basically saying is we recognize our responsibility to make an impact and make some changes to reduce the town's water use, because we see a big potential for reduction there.
Well, and it's
if we can show that we're
proactive,
doing
right?
it,
We're not out
then
of
we're-
water
yeah.
yet, but we're gonna do these things before we run out of water.
And it's saying we're walking the talk,
Mhm.
and if we do it, we hope you'll join us. So it's
Yeah.
not just like you guys need to,
Yeah,
so.
I think it's
See,
great.
I'm proud of the town for doing that.
I'm very happy with that idea, but I've been saying for 9 years that I really wish we all paid for our water at an actual usage rate, not just tiered. Because I will never even possibly meet the top tier
Well,
of the lowest level.
Yeah, the problem with that is it doesn't, when you try and structure it that way, there's no way to make it actually pay for the water.
So what
Because
you
you
do is
can't-
you have a base rate to pay for maintenance and, replacement and growth. And
Which is
then-
what we have now.
And then you have a per gallon rate.
Which is what we have now.
Which is basically what we have now.
But
What
it's
what you're
not-
arguing is for a smaller base rate, for people like you who use very little water.
Yeah.
And we talked about that, but what it would require on the other end is increasing the rates for higher uses of water to a point that some people are gonna freak out. Now, that may be what we should need to do, but it's not an easy conversation, I guess.
It's not an easy conversation, but when I was little in New England, we were paying for water in New England, where there's plenty of water,
Where there used to be plenty of. They've had drought too,
off and on.
yeah.
My point is that
I was stunned when I moved to the West, 1975, that nobody paid for water and everybody just thinks it's this infinite resource. Now people are starting to learn that it's not, but it hasn't impacted their lifestyle yet. And when people have to stop watering lawns, or maybe they change what they're growing, then I think we will start preparing this valley for the future.
Yeah.
I
think-
think this is a great idea, but I don't think it's nearly enough.
Well, and your point is well taken, and I think it's one of those kind of political, for lack of a better word, questions where, you know, you gotta make things, at least initially, palatable. You have to do things in degrees. If you make things too extreme, people revolt, and so I think that's what we're talking about.
Well, and you
But if
also
you had-
require
excuse me,
trees
We-
in
we-
new
excuse me,
development.
If it had like a 3 to 5 year implementation plan, we could get everybody there.
I'm not sure about that. I mean, my concern here is that everything that you say, you feel better about sleeping, but Arizona gobbles it up. If you look at the Colorado pack and what's going on between Arizona, California, Nevada, and Colorado, we have a pack that was done about 125 years ago that we use less than we require, and they use twice what they're given.
That's a whole, your point's well taken, but it isn't really relevant. on
That's the macro
the local
picture,
government.
and I read about it every day.
Yeah,
I'm just talking about what we need, because we have one source. I mean, that's it.
Got two sources. We've tried.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
well, we don't have Tri-County in town. That's another thing we talked
Yeah, I
about.
mean, it's there. We just have to get it.
Well, we also require trees to be planted on new development, and new trees need to be watered.
Montrose has enough water allocated from Tri-County Water for 300,000 people. So there's plenty of water here, which is where we choose to get it.
Well, the great thing about this is that it continued, and it started and continued in some ways, these kinds of conversations. That we're talking about all the different,
Yeah.
and really, it's kind of a cliche, but thinking outside the box where you're like, well, maybe we should think about going into an agreement with Tri-County so that.
The rub is they're gonna want our source. If we can get into Tri-County to
Right.
keep our source, vote for it. But I wouldn't want to give up our source because it's so good. They'd want to take it.
This is the co-facilitator from UWCD, and that's the main facilitator.
Oh,
So this is our team and our two facilitators.
I have no idea.
That's cool.
And this is a couple pictures of us working, lots of sticky notes.
Oh, I'm sure.
It was a fascinating
I don't know.
process.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then this is the whole group.
Wow.
All right.
Well,
And it's really
very
cool, like
to
there's
be-
some,
Yeah, to be included in that.
Yeah, yeah.
As small as we are, I think it's, testimony to your guys' interest in doing the right thing.
And like you said, you were the smallest representation there. So,
and in some ways, we were more ahead of the game than a lot of the other communities. We've done our work, we've
which is
set a
wonderful.
good mark, we've got a lot more to do.
Yes.
But, I mean, I think back to when I moved here, the minimum or the water usage minimum was 18,000 gallons.
Yeah.
But it's because, like Jack said, it's like, whatever we don't use just goes down the river, goes to Arizona.
But I think
And it's because we had so much water
Right.
before the drought.
Right.
That it was like, why not? And then Joanne came along and went, wait a minute, this doesn't work. This is not a sustainable model.
But I
And
think
need-
we have
And
to-
actually sorry to interrupt, to get some funding, the state looked at our water rate structure and went, what WTF, you guys, you gotta drop your minimum to like 6 or 8 or 10,000. And this 18,000 isn't gonna cut it if you want funding from us. So that started the discussion. And certainly one of the things we talked about while we were doing this is maybe we need to drop the base rate down to like 3 or something. So that for the people who don't use hardly any water, they feel like they feel like if they are getting treated more fairly, they're paying less. But then the corresponding thing is that the high use water users are gonna have to pay through the teeth.
Maybe there's a. bonus
Maybe it
for
would
using less.
influence
I
having
think
less
that-
children,
I think
because if you have a lot of kids, you use more water.
I
If
think
you're a
that
restaurant, you use
process
more
needs to
Population
start.
control.
I think that process needs to start.
We need to have.
Because we
and-
have to be, I don't want to be tied up with Tri-County because they will always have the bigger political and financial pull. I want us to be self-sufficient and to plan for what we can afford and what we have for water. To be relying on somebody else with the climate and what's going on with the Colorado, I think is nuts.
Yeah.
Because I read about that situation every day.
Right.
So I
We're
think
actually
it's,
very lucky because we've got our water supplies, you know, aside from the fact that we have no idea how bad the drought's gonna get and the
Right.
climate change is gonna, the hot, dry scenario is like, it's scary because it might stop snowing. It might actually stop snowing. It's hard to imagine, but it could.
and we don't know how or when,
Yeah.
but we know for sure.
The model right now is these extremes, like last winter, these peaks and valleys, but with an average downturn.
Right. So we do know
Yeah.
we're already on that downhill plane.
Yeah.
For supply.
Yeah.
And demand will increase, obviously,
Yeah.
growing. So to me, it's an all of the above, and we start now with a 5 or 10 year plan.
Well, I think this is a good start to the process.
And big users, yeah, they do need to pay through the nose, because that is the only thing that will encourage them to use less.
Well, yeah, but I think one of the things you have to consider is not everybody's a single person family, you know? like
I know.
people have
But
kids.
I guarantee that, the family with 3 kids and 2 dogs and, a lot of laundry every week, until they're incentivized to cut back.
But I think her point is there's only so many places they can cut back with
Yes.
laundry and baths.
So you figure
They
that
can get
out.
rid of some of their kids.
And they're.
Which is
they're
the
often people who
205%
can
increase
afford
in
to
the water
pay
bill.
through the teeth, so to speak,
And
for
so
their
that's
water,
where the
so-
plan
One could
comes
live at
in.
your house bill.
How do you plan for, we know, the economic margins and where people live and what they live with and without. And then it's like, as we start introducing the plan, it's like, hey, the next time you replace your water heater, go to an on-demand. Hey, the next time you replace a washer and dryer, do it this way.
Yeah. Well,
I mean,
it's how many families with kids can afford to do that on a regular
Does it
basis?
on demand
Is
use
there a way
less
to
water?
bonus the water users backwards, like you said, if you use this much, you get a cut.
there you go.
Instead of changing the whole system, like John's talking, bonus them. If you use, I think, what's our minimum, 6 or 5? 6, I think. So say, I'm just talking out loud here, just brainstorm. So 6 is the minimum now. If we said, if you use, say, 3 or 2 or 3, whatever the number we decided, you get to cut it in half without changing the whole structure. And you have a bonus for the
Well, now we have
people who
less
use less.
money going towards our
There's
new
only
sewer
there's
plant.
only gonna be a few people that make that bonus. I
Maybe
think.
they just get a gold
Percentage.
star.
So the way we
At the
did
end of the year, they get
a
an
big
award.
conversion in healthcare when we went to
$20.
electronic health records was in the beginning, there was huge amounts of federal money to help pay for the electronic healthcare systems and the training. The training was free. I mean, the carrots were huge. And then over time, about a 10-year period, the carrot went away and then it became a stick. And it worked. And the people who still, it's like, there is free money out there for us to help you do this. And, 10 years later, when people are like, why are you charging me more? And why aren't I, and it's like, we gave you 10 years.
It's funny that you use that analogy because I have a friend in Montrose who's a doctor and she thinks the electronic medical records thing is a disaster. She thinks it's a complete.
And there will always be those who think it's
What is it? What is it?
Electronic medical records.
Well, yeah, I can't get mine now from Mountain Medical.
Yeah.
They're like,
Let's not go
sorry,
down- let's
we
not
can
go
print
down.
them for you, but we can't
Problem.
give you last year's.
That's a
Test.
different problem. But the point being that that's how they implemented the system.
Yeah.
Well,
it's-
part of the problem sometimes
Did you have
is
that problem,
water
Bill?
leaks. And so people get water leaks and they don't know that they're having them.
That's where the daily monitoring comes in.
Yeah, and so from my understanding is that the meters do work, so you can tell how much usage that we need to get more technology. From my
Maybe there's a
understanding,
grant for that.
in the future, Wanda's supposed to be able to tell if people have leaks and if the water rate has jumped. And then hopefully we can correct.
It's pretty easy to tell if you have a leak. You just shut off all your
Actually-
water and look at your meter.
Yeah, but
She
you have to
helped
figure it
help me
out to
find a
look.
leak.
I had a leak for like
Uh,
a year. I
you
was
know,
like,
when
huh,
all of a sudden,
You have to do it.
And then I was like, oh, look, it is a leak.
That's pretty obvious.
Yeah,
It's like,
and
We got too many people talking at
Been
once.
on here for.
Yeah, we're done talking about
For
this.
calling.
Unless you have more in your presentation.
Well, I just want to, can I add one thing?
Yes, of course.
Sorry, maybe it's a couple of things, but one statement that great conversation and just to kind of build on what John was saying, one of one of the pictures he showed kind of these goals and we talked about everything that you all are talking about. And it really came down to resources available, and we developed an action plan. And I don't know that we've seen that yet, John, have we? They were gonna kind of put it together for us and send it off to us. But we started with a 2-year action plan and actually pushed it out to 4 years, I think. And it includes all the stuff that we're talking about here and kind of a phased kind of growth. The first objective being to reevaluate and update the town systems, right? And one of the others being that we were talking about here is developing a residential water use program. And that was where the messaging and kind of the marketing stuff came in. And that can do a lot of what we were just talking about. And it's going to be the mechanism, hopefully, for some of that. We actually, it was really great conversation. And then Preston, I can say this since he's not there, says, yeah, that's great, but how are we going to do that with our little town, right? And so I think at the end of the day, when what you see come out of that and what hopefully will get implemented over the next 3 to 6 months and then build on from there is a great portfolio and a great program that will kind of, at least through that process, address everything that we were just talking about, that you all were mentioning, and making sure that it's done in a way that can be sustainable from a resource standpoint. I have to say that I really thoroughly enjoyed the whole conversation and the discussion, and the town, frankly, is sitting pretty well. That doesn't mean we can't do more, and some of that is just understanding the data, getting more data, doing some more mapping. And another thing we talked about that wasn't in here is low impact development standards. How do we change some of the standards, the code requirements, to recharge the groundwater and create a more healthy environment, and therefore require less outdoor landscaping? So there's no one silver bullet in this, and that's certainly what I think the key for me, at least me coming out of that, was you can always do better, and there's no one thing that's going to solve it. And I think, at least from my perspective, that what we came out of this action plan for the next 4 years really kind of addresses some of the major issues and it sets us up to be able to address them all long term and kind of expand from there. So that was just my perception of it, and I thought it was great. So John, Tom, thank you so much for inviting me to join. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm glad you could be there, TJ. It was good, and thanks for that take on it, because I think you're absolutely right. I think we've set ourselves up to be in a really good place to impact these things well. And it was really encouraging to see how well we're doing already, but there's always, and you know what you were just saying about there's always more to do, and there is no one silver bullet. That applies to most things. I've been saying that about the workforce housing issue for years. Everybody wants they want space to create to solve the problem. And I still hear people saying that they've heard someone say, oh, space to create was a failure. It's like, what? Just because it didn't, not everybody that wanted to live there could live there, it's a failure. Same thing for Winterhorn Homes. It's like, well, how come this couple didn't qualify? Well, not every project is going to work for everybody. That's why we need more and more multiple approaches, lots of different solutions. And I think we're doing on both the housing issue and the water issue, and they're totally related. We're doing good work, and there's like this HB, was it 123 or that we committed to? We're going to do.
Yep. The housing bill.
And that signs us up for some funding. There's the lucky thing is that they're just, I don't want to sound like I'm, some left-wing nut job, but what the Biden administration has done in terms of the funding for all these kinds of projects is amazing.
There's a lot of money. We need not to miss this train.
It is.
And that's why I'm saying
all
all of the above, just keep going.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Cool. Stay tuned.
Trick or treat.
This meeting is adjourned.
Have a great night, everyone. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye, TJ.
Bye.
Take it easy.
Yes.
Have fun.
Yeah.